Hey there, listeners. I wanted to take a moment before we get started today to let you know that I have two incredible investment opportunities for you this month. One is a multifamily syndication, and the other is a self storage syndication. I'm excited to share them with you, but I can only do that if you're on my investor list. To get started, just click on my calendar link in the show notes to schedule a chat with me. Now is the time to take charge of your financial future. Get ahead of inflation and start building passive income and growing your wealth today. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. My guest today is a self-described serial entrepreneur who has more ideas than time in the day to implement them. And I know that a lot of us can sympathize with that. So Dr. Michael Storm is the owner and founder of Storm Anesthesia and ResearchCRNA.com, an educational website for continuing education that focuses on micro-learning and mini quizzes to provide CEUs. In addition, Research CRNA will be launching an app this fall to fully integrate with the website. Michael is also an accomplished author of 2 review books, as well as Physics and Chemistry for Nurse Anesthesia, Regional Anesthesia for Nurse Anesthesia, and the Storm Anesthesia Manual. He still enjoys squeezing the bag and giving back to the profession as the chair of the Research and Scholarship Committee in South Carolina. And Michael is also a certified ski instructor, having taught in Italy, France, and 3 winters in Vail, Colorado. Welcome to the show today, Michael.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So now you and your wife, Annette, have had quite the ride over the last 30 years. So would you mind sharing with me how you got started in nursing and ultimately ended up in anesthesia?
Sure. Yeah, that's a long time coming. So we are both from Denmark, and we went to nursing school. We went to the same nursing school back in Denmark, in Copenhagen, the main capital of Denmark. And I was a year and a half ahead of her. We played volleyball together. We started hanging out together, and suddenly we are an item. Then I went to Italy and then France for 2 winters to teach skiing. I thought that could be fun when I kind of got my instructor license. And she got envious. She said, that's not fair that you just kind of quit your job, go skiing all winter and come back, and I just had to keep working as a nurse. So we decided we could do something together, and we decided we could go to US for a couple of years. And she kind of said that her point was she didn't want to turn 70 eventually, sitting in a rocking chair and say, why did we never try this? So that's why we kind of decided to try an adventure, come to the United States and work as nurses. And to do that, we kind of took an exam, a CGFNS, Commission of Foreign Graduate Nursing Studies, that gives an exam about English proficiency and nursing knowledge, like a mini NCLEX around the world. We passed that, and that gave you back then in 90, it gave you a year to be able to get a working permit in US, an H-1 visa. So we found a company that wanted to bring us over, and we started working for this company back in October of 1990. And then, of course, it's kind of interesting because 4 months later, we got fired by this company.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, things are interesting in US when you come from Denmark. I worked for this company. I was sent out to work in the emergency room, and I didn't have ACLS. And the DON of the hospital was manning the nursing office, and she kind of asked me for my ACLS license. And I said, I don't have it, ma'am. I'm in the process of taking it. And I explained how I did my EKG class, and next weekend I'll do ACLS course. And for me, that was a big deal doing ACLS. That was the first time we did that. So she called my office and asked about my ACLS license, and the boss was sitting in the office and said, "Oh yeah, I have it right here. I have a copy of it." I'm not sure what Mike was saying. Like, he was all lying, but
Okay.
so she sent me, just looked weird at me, sent me home. I went by the office and I went and said, "Dude, you kind of made me look really bad out there." He said, "Oh, you're just an idiot, Michael." So I kind of walked out the office, went home for that night, and the next 2 days later, a husband of a lot of us travelers that worked together for this company, he went in every Friday morning to pick up the paycheck. Well, this morning there was no paycheck for me nor my wife, Annette. So when I called them and asked what's going on, he said, "No, you guys are fired for subordination," which was a term I had never heard in my life. So they fired us because I didn't want to lie to the DON in the office about the ACLS. And well, they kept 4 weeks of pay, working 5 nights a week. So we had to take them to court and to get our money. And
Oh my goodness.
oh my God, yes, welcome to the United States.
Yeah, welcome to the United States and welcome to nursing.
I know.
Holy smokes.
So of course that didn't stop us from working over here. The plan was to be here for 1 year to kind of get our feet wet, to try it, maybe 3, make some money, go back to Denmark, settle down, buy a house, get a family, all that stuff. Well, that's now 31 years ago. So one thing led to another. We got a green card a year later after we got fired from this company. We won that in the lottery. US has a green card lottery that you can apply for. We wrote 500 applications each. We staggered the mail-in date, and we both won. So then that enabled us to kind of work anywhere. You didn't need a sponsor to have a job, so you could just get a job anywhere. And that's where we went to Vail that following winter the first time, because now we could work as a ski instructor and a nurse and anywhere else we wanted. So we went to Vail, we came back a couple of years, and then eventually we went back to Los Angeles. So my wife could get back in the ICU, get some ICU experience, get her CCRN. And back then I worked as an ER nurse, as a critical care transport, and just kind of enjoyed life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, a good friend of mine, very smart guy, he did his MBA and JD at the same time while he was running a business. So he was kind of bugging me and said, "Why don't you go back to school, Mike? The time goes anyway. You might go back, get your bachelor, and if you don't do it, 2 years from now, you will still not have a bachelor, or you will. You might as well just go to school." So I went back, got my bachelor of health service management because I thought I wanted to be a hospital manager. So that was back in early 90s when there was a huge crunch of nursing shortage in California. It didn't look good. You couldn't hire a nurse even if you had money. So I had always had a dream about anesthesia in Denmark. I wanted to go into an anesthesia department and do anesthesia. I thought it was a very interesting field, a lot of autonomy and things like that. But I figured in US, you needed a nursing bachelor and then a master's degree in order to become a nurse anesthetist. And I thought, I cannot go back and do bed baths and patient feeding again to get a nursing bachelor. I didn't realize that that's not what you need when you are practicing RN. So we met a nurse that was in a nurse anesthesia program at Kaiser back in California. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me and said, "Oh no, Mike, you don't not need that at all. You do your Bachelor of Science in Health Service Management. That'll allow you to get into anesthesia school if you want to." And suddenly I kind of say, "Oh my God, maybe I can." So I started the process and eventually ended up at the University of South Carolina, across the country. And back then I kind of said, whatever program want to accept me will give me my 4 letters, CRNA. I don't care where it is. I just wanted it. I was like early 40s, mid 40s. I thought, the older you get, the harder it is to come in and the harder it is to go to school. So
yeah.
So when they accepted me, that's when we moved out here. And then I went to anesthesia school, graduated in 2005.
Very cool. Very cool. And then after graduation, you and a couple classmates decided to launch a review course. So that, what that tells me is that you weren't happy with the review courses that you were seeing around you, or you at least saw some kind of an opening there. So what did it look like then versus now?
As far as we could find back then, we did Valley Anesthesia. So we did Valley Educational. We went to 2 of us, Tonya Jackson and myself. We actually went and did the course. And we thought the course was okay. The book was good, but the course was just okay. One of the guys was really good. The other guy was awful in our mind. But we didn't really think that it was worth going to the course. As long as you bought the material, that's all you needed. So we thought there was a room for doing something better. So we decided that we could make a better review course. And I think that was a big mouthful looking back at it, because I do think Valley has a lot of good material. They obviously have a lot of experience that we didn't have back then. But we thought highly about ourselves. So we thought we could do this better. So we sat down, started that fall, right after we graduated in the summer, and we started making a course. We gave that the next year to our junior classmates, that the class underneath us. And we got great reviews. So we decided, hey, this sounds like a deal. So we said, let's take this on the road. And we started advertising a little bit and calling around. And we started posting. Back then, we posted a course at a certain spot, and then we hope people sign up for it. And we did that for several years. Then we started contacting programs and going directly to programs for the full class instead of having people come to us and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it was basically because we thought that there was something missing on the market, a different approach to it, and something that was done by all CRNAs instead of a great science guy that knows what he's doing, but he's not a CRNA. So we thought we could do something better. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that's what we did. And Sam, I don't remember you from the course, but you obviously have some of our material.
I was going to say, I got to show it off here to the folks watching on YouTube. This is my NARC4U manual, and you can see written by Michael Storm and Tanya Jackson. This was back in, I graduated in 2011. And this, as I was telling Michael before we got on the show, that review manual and that review course helped me tremendously with passing my boards. So nothing but gratitude to you and Tanya for starting that review course, because I took Valley as well. And, Valley, like you said, it was a good course, and the materials that you have from it are really good. But there were parts of the NARC4U manual that just broke things down differently that really meshed with how I learned. And so, big kudos to you guys and what you've been doing in the past. And that was 10 years ago. So, you clearly, you've been doing this for a while. How has Storm Anesthesia grown over time? Because obviously you and Tanya aren't working on this business together anymore. You and your wife have set off together and created Storm Anesthesia. How's that grown over time, and what's that look like? What has been unexpected from that?
Yeah. So NARC4U, or Nurse Anesthesia Review Course for You, we started out with the three of us. The three of us we studied together through anesthesia program. We passed boards together, and then we decided to do this business. About a year into it, the one guy decided that he didn't have time, family, and all that occupation took over. So Tanya and I ran this from about 2007 and up to 2013, when she kind of got busy with life, wanted to start a family, had a new job, wanted to spend more time on that. So she didn't no longer have time for the teaching business. So we decided to part ways, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do at that point, because I couldn't just do it on my own. My wife just graduated a year before that, 2012, as a nurse anesthetist. And she wanted to have a couple of years before she would join the business. But suddenly there was a press, like, it's either now or it's nothing, because I'm going to close the whole thing down. So she graciously accepted she would kind of step up and step in. And my partner from the early days said, okay, I will help you. He was at that point assistant director at the anesthesia program here in South Carolina. And he would step in and help us teach some courses to get it going. So he did that for a couple of years. And then it kind of grew from there. And Ed and I rewrote some of the material. And we didn't really do a lot of advertising. So we just had 2 or 3 programs that kind of stuck with us, and we kind of went to while we were revamping the material. And then for several years, really nothing happened. I just kind of got tired of writing and rewriting material. So it just sat there. And then about, I guess, 4 years ago, I decided to rewrite all my material in the review book that you have. And I wanted to kind of just kind of update it, give it a fresh touch. And while I was doing that, it took a life of its own. It became a lot more writing than rewriting. It became like writing from scratch from a lot of the chapters that I did. My wife's chapters, she expanded on. And so eventually I came out with a new product I call Stall Anesthesia Review, Volume 1 and 2. And it's like 600 pages, double spaced, like 2 columns. And it's just a lot more writing than was in the manual to begin with. And I was finishing that up last year. And I was kind of thinking what I need to use it for, like where is the room for this? And I realized a lot of this material is not just student material. It's really fantastic review material for CRNAs as well that just want a brief overview on the topic. And I started thinking of it and I said, this is actually CE material, continuing education for CRNAs. I can take a lot of this material, make some videos, post them, get some CE credits for it. And that started kind of rolling in my mind. And I said, I think this could be a good idea. 2011, when NPCRNA, they launched the CPC program, I was one of the meeting before they launched it here in South Carolina, and I saw potential. Obviously, potential for money to be made. So I went online, I bought the names, researchcrna.com, 2011. I actually wanted CRNA research, but that was already taken. Nobody ever launched anything on that name. But I said, hey, research CRNA, that works actually really well. So I bought that name 10 years ago. And then last fall, I said, it's time to maybe use that name for something. And I decided to figure out how to launch a business of continuing education. One of the things I feel about the current state of online learning is that you watch an hour to maybe 3 hours of video material. And then you get your 20, 25, 30 questions after those 3 hours. Very few CRNAs have the luxury of spending 3 hours straight watching learning. So most people will be interrupted by family, by cooking, by kids. It's just impossible. So you would be starting your learning, you get broken away from it, you may not come back for a couple of days. So when you come back and your test comes out, you have no idea what happened the first couple of hours of learning. So I thought that was and I still think that's a stupid way of doing it. So I came up, I thought, with the idea of doing short little segments of video learning, followed by one question. And when you've done that one question, you pass that little mini quiz, you're done with that. You can stop, you can come back in 2 weeks, and you're not responsible for that material, only for the most current 8 to 10 minutes. Well, so I then did reach out to my community of CRNAs, asked if somebody would be part of giving me some presentations. They just needed to do a narrated PowerPoint, give me some questions, answers, and I will then take it from there, break it down, launch it, approve it with ANA, and get up. So I spent 2 or 3 months finding the platform that will work for this while my people were working on it. Then April 1st, I launched my courses there online. And the funny thing is, the concept that I thought I invented, it's called microlearning. It's been up for the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously, it's not something that I came up with, but I thought I was just being very genius. But it is actually out there. And I really think a lot of learning would be short little segments like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're seeing that now, especially with the reduced attention spans that people have, the constant interruptions that folks have. And yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing to have courses that are a few hours long and you can get a bunch of CEUs knocked out. But I don't blame you for not wanting to spend your off day doing that. If you could take a few minutes a day, maybe, and it keeps you in that mindset of continual learning as opposed to like the brain dump that you have with traditional learning.
Absolutely. So our courses are actually, you're getting a full CE or 2 or 3 CEs in one course, but you can do that course over whatever amount of time you want to take. So you can just do like a 10-minute here, waiting for your son's football practice to finish, or you're waiting in line for them to come out of school, or you have an afternoon break at work, you can knock out 10 minutes. And what I think is the benefit of microlearning is that you take the exam right then when you do your learning, and you don't have to worry about if you remember it later on. So I really think, to me, this is the way to go. I don't know how I will evolve this microlearning concept, but I do think that is the way of future learning. I call it easy, simple, straightforward, the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there must have been a real learning curve though for switching from writing manuals to all of a sudden producing video content and putting that online with systems that are actually, having testing of individuals. What was that process like? How did you get through all of that information that's out there? Because clearly there's not just one, way to do it. There's probably dozens of companies that offer certain things like this. How did you go through that process?
2 to 3 months of hard work, but that is true. There are multiple companies. So back when we started the business, Not For You, in the early 2000s, we realized quickly we needed a website. We didn't know anything about it. Tanya's brother was dabbling in making a little bit of website, so he made our first website. The trouble was, anytime we wanted to update it, we used to ask him, "Can you do this?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'll get to it." 2 months later, he still hadn't got to it. So like eventually I said, can't be that hard. I must be able to do this myself. So I learned to do website building on a Joomla platform. I've done that ever since 2008 or 9, whatever. So I was comfortable building websites, working websites back end. So I thought, so this new adventure, I just need to have a module on the Joomla website I'll build, and that module should be able to put all this out there. So I started researching it that way, and I couldn't find anything that was easy to work with. So I tried several other platforms, and I eventually ended up on the platform that I'm on right now, which is called LearnWorlds. It's out of Cyprus. It's cutting edge. It's drag and drop, and they do pretty much everything that I needed to do. But it took me probably 6 or 7 different platforms, each spending a week of learning it, how to work it, before I realized, oh, there's a shortcoming right here. Until I finally found this that gave me pretty much everything that I need in a solid structure from a reputable company that I felt I could trust wouldn't crash when people are using it. So that's kind of how I come around. It took me, I spent definitely end of October, all November, most of December last year of finding this platform. It seemed to be pretty simple, but it is a lot of work. And of course, you have to read all the ANA stuff and figure out how to work with them. And ANA can be a hassle and a hurdle to work with until you figure out how it works. And then it's actually very simple. But
yeah,
the first couple of courses to get approved was like, why this? Why is that way? Can't we just do it what's simple and easy? But when you figure out how they work, how they think, you just repeat the process over, and every time ever since it's been snap, bang, done. So it was just the first couple of times it was hard.
Yeah. Now I do want to talk a little bit about the costs associated with starting this business, specifically the research CRNA.com. It's something that you mentioned, all of these programs that you have to use, and then you mentioned having input from other people who do presentations and stuff like that. Are they being compensated in some way? Talk about a little bit more of the costs of getting this rolling, if you would.
Sure. Everything is bankrolled by me personally. So all the money that I've made, which is not a whole lot compared to what time you put in, teaching in Storm Anesthesia, before that, Not For You. Every year we had a small profit. I put it in an investment account, put it aside, you can spend it. So over the 20 years, 15 years, it has of course grown. There is some money sitting there. And I always knew that maybe one day I would take that money and try something different. I don't want to take it out of a personal account. So I've been using that money to bankroll this adventure. And it has certainly cost several $1,000s of trying different platforms. You can try the free version, but that doesn't do much for you. You really have to buy into the pro level or higher level of these platforms to get all the features that they have. And the only way to test it out is to basically buy it. So I did that. I simply just bought into it, bought an account, and started uploading and started trying to figure out how to build web pages on it and how to load videos, how to figure out how to work exams on it and how to work evaluations and and all that kind of stuff. And every time I found a shortcoming, I tried to work with the company. See, it's a way that I'm just not seeing it, and eventually turned out, no, we don't do that yet. Most of these platforms on the market are meant for people who want to teach you how to do something everyday life, like how do I fix my watch, or how do I cook rice, or how do I do something that you can just sit at home doing, but not where you have an exam where a major organization like ANA put requirements on it. So that was the hard part, finding a platform that I could actually make it mandatory that the person taking the exam actually took it and just didn't go through it, up getting a certificate for not passing any exams. So that was really a hard part. That cost a bunch of money to go out. So my platform with LearnWorlds is what's called the Learning Center platform. It's kind of the highest level. It's like $3,000 a year to just have that platform. Mm-hmm. Then there's no extra fee for your amount of learners, which is a benefit. So you pay a flat fee for a year, but you can have 5 learners or 5,000 learners. There's no extra fee for that. They're very responsive. You do have a personal onboarding person on the company on this level that will give you some time, and she actually responds for me within an hour when you send something for her. So either she will personally, or somebody is watching her account when she's asleep. So if I post something at night, a question, there will be an answer the next morning when I get up. Or if I post it during the day, an hour or two later, I will have a response from this. So that's been pretty nice. So the contributors, which are the backbone of the company, when I reached out to them, the beauty of the CRNA community is that nobody ever have asked me what's in it for me. Everybody has just been like, oh my God, Michael, that's such a cool idea. And oh yeah, I'll be happy to be part of it. Some of them, then when you realize how much work it takes to make a presentation, have to pull back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I really don't have time right now, but I still think it's a cool idea. But the people who have been willing to give me a presentation, every single one of them have done it for free. Not ask for what they get compensated with, or what do I get back from you? Not a single one. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So does that mean that I'm never going to compensate them? If I start making money, hopefully one day on this, it's not for me to get rich on this. I have had a great anesthesia career, so this is sounds weird, spent this much time on it. It's a fun job. I enjoy what I'm doing. If I can make a little bit of money, it'll be great. But the money that the company is going to make, hopefully, is certainly going to be shared with the people who are the backbone of the company, the contributors who make the courses.
Yeah.
So currently, what I offer is that every course, all the CEs that we have available is free to the contributors. Because when you have it, it doesn't cost me to give it to you, to my contributor. It's just another name. I just need to upload it. I already paid for the fee to ANA. So I can give these CE credits to the instructor, or to the contributors on my business platform. Mm-hmm. So when it grows and people get on, I get more CEs available. Obviously, that is a more valuable package. But hopefully one day when I actually start to see real dollars roll in, my plan is definitely that every December 1st, there will be a check coming around to every contributor based on how much they have contributed to the platform. But it is expensive. It is extremely time consuming, but it's awesome. It's fun. It's a different thing of learning. Yeah. It's not, and I'm sure you do the same. You're a CRNA, but now you're doing something totally different. Mm-hmm. I love CRNA. I love squeaking the bag, but it's so cool to do business, because that is so different from doing anesthesia in a healthcare environment. Yeah. So suddenly being your own business person, running a business, all the problems with that, it just is such a different feel that I think it's fun.
Yeah. So you've got this passion. Where does that come from for you? Where did that spark happen? Did you have it growing up, or was it just something that's kind of evolved over time for you?
My dad owns a business. My granddad started the business My dad was a seaman back then, was called back from this big seas because my granddad couldn't run it. And so my dad got called home, took over the business, ran it for my whole life. And so I have business in my family. I never wanted to be part of that. I thought healthcare was more interesting. I'm not sure where it comes from. My brother is a teacher. My middle brother's a teacher. My uncle was a teacher. So I do have teaching sitting there in my family. But I've always enjoyed teaching, either as a coach in sports when I was younger. I played volleyball at a very high level. I became volleyball referee. I was a referee instructor. I always kind of enjoyed the teaching, kind of giving it back. I was a ski instructor. I liked that teaching. I loved my office as a ski instructor. And I just like these things. So I think it was pretty natural when I became a CRNA, and we had our little study group, and we kind of talked about there must be something better than Valley. That we kind of decided, hey, we can teach this ourselves. We don't need Valley to do that. But it's only when you then start, you realize how much work Valley has put into it over the years, the value of what Valley has to offer. Yeah. When you're sitting there as a new grad, you think, I can do this better. May not, but I do think you have a good point. We tried to put a different spin on the way we were teaching. Instead of doing what Valley was doing back there, we were looking, how can we do it our way? So we could bring value to our product. But I've always enjoyed teaching. So I think it's just something that I've always been doing, either as a mentor, as a nurse, or as an instructor here in Not4U and Storm Anesthesia. And I think the research CRNA is just a natural evolution, I would say, that instead of just teaching students, now kind of moving into the CRNA markets.
Very cool. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. It's been a complete pleasure getting to know more about you and the journey that you've had, getting to this point with your business and with Storm Anesthesia. So I want to give people a chance at home to find out more about you and your review courses. How can they do that?
So researchcrna.com is a website. It's out there. Stormanesthesia.com is another website, and both of them are linked together. On the researchcrna.com, I'm writing a blog every time when I have a chance. I kind of put some thoughts in there. And so what you can do, you can sign up, and if you kind of feel, I'm not sure if this is for me, it's buy one course, see how it goes, and see what microlearning is about. And it's very interesting. It's hard to get your name out, of course. But when people have actually bought a course, I have so many people that suddenly come back in the next 4 or 5 days, buy all the courses. And one thing I want to kind of tell people, if you go out there, you try one course, you test it out, and you really like this, and I wish I bought the whole bundle, everything at once, because I give you a big discount for that. Send me an email. I'll be happy to upgrade you, so you don't have to kind of buy them individually. So I will work with you. If you just realize what this is about, but you didn't want to kind of jump in and buy everything we have at the same time. So
yeah.
So it's just go on researchcrna.com and check it out, spread the word. But I think when people check it out, they realize the ability to do just small little sections at a time is just a wonderful way to do learning.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You never know the difference that you might make in someone's life. Am I right? Michael's initial venture made a huge impact for me when I was studying for boards 10 years ago. And the path that he took to get there and in the decades since has been nothing short of unique. From being an immigrant to becoming a nurse and later becoming an entrepreneur, he admitted to me after the recording that he feels like he's always been about a decade late in actually getting to his next career step. However, I think he's actually shown a tremendous amount of courage in being willing to take those leaps of faith and starting over at different stages in his life. And as his career has evolved, he recently went down to 2 days a week of anesthesia work. Review courses and research CRNA are Michael's passion project. And now anesthesia is more enjoyable for him since he doesn't have to do it every day. We should all aspire to the type of work flexibility that fits our own desired lifestyle. I hope you enjoyed our discussion, and that's going to be a wrap for today's show. Be safe and take care of each other out there. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by OnCall Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find OnCall Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.